Hello and welcome. Welcome to Input English. Today we join Cathy and the boys in the garden. Now this is the new location of the garden. If you recall, in previous episodes we discussed that Cathy had previously had gardens every year, but this is the first year her garden is in its new location. Now this is important to Cathy because now she has the room to expand it to make the garden the way she wants her garden. Since early in the spring, she has been working on plans for this garden in her head. She planted the carrots about 6 weeks ago. So she now has carrot greens that are growing well, and she has peeked down into the soil out of curiosity, and she has seen that the carrots are small and they're growing into bright orange carrots. She planted 3 zucchini plants at the back of the garden. She had been cautioned by friends to not plant too many zucchinis, but Cathy loves zucchini, and her analysis was that the worst thing that could happen is she would be giving zucchini away to her friends and family. One of her friends joked that she might be in the unenviable position of needing to leave zucchini in bags or boxes on the neighbor's porch and then running away before they discovered what she had done. Undaunted by that, Cathy planted 3 zucchini plants, and they are now taking over the back of the garden. They have grown rapidly, their leaves are large, and the vines are everywhere, covering the back of the garden. This is what she had planned. Today, she's planning on adding 2 more zucchini plants because she wants to be able to harvest zucchinis over a longer period of time. So she put the plants in 6 weeks ago, and now it's time for a second planting of 2 plants in front of the others, so that after the other 3 plants have played out and are no longer producing, she'll have younger plants that are now producing. So she has thought this through very well. In the new garden, she has plenty of room to do this. During her thoughts about her gardening experiences and concerns, she focused a lot on the pests in this garden. She knew that insects, birds, and rodents would want to use her garden as a source of food. Fundamentally, Cathy doesn't want to kill these marauders. She doesn't want to cause harm to animals or even insects, but she needs to control them so that she has a garden that actually produces. So her strategy has been repellent rather than killing. She doesn't want to use any pesticides. One of the repellents she uses, she made from a recipe she got online. Water plus a small amount of dishwashing liquid plus a few drops of peppermint oil, and she put all of that into a sprayer, and that tends to repel and prevent problems with aphids. So she uses that with no harm to the plants. One of her concerns is related to previous experience growing tomato plants, because tomato plants are frequently attacked by green hornworms. Now, a green hornworm is a larva for a sphinx moth. The life cycle of the sphinx moth includes the adult that lays the eggs, and then when the eggs hatch, they become the caterpillar. In this case, we call it a green hornworm. And the caterpillars grow over a period of several weeks, and they may get to be 2 inches long. When the caterpillar reaches its maturation as a caterpillar, it drops to the ground and undergoes a metamorphosis, a change called pupation. That is, it turns into a cocoon, and this occurs on or in the ground. Weeks later, a moth emerges from the cocoon. In this case, the green hornworm becomes a sphinx moth. In years past, Cathy has found these hornworms and has removed them from her tomato plants and thrown them into the yard. This bothered her because she figured that that was killing the larva, and she didn't really want to position herself as a gardener having to kill everything in order to get the garden she wants. She would rather adopt a live and let live approach and use repellents rather than killing as her methodology. So when she planted her tomato plants, she used some strategy. Again, she did this in her head long before she did it in the soil. In years past, she had typically planted 2 tomato plants, but this year she planted 4. She has the room for it, so why not? Now, her reasoning is that 3 of those tomato plants are for her and her family. The 4th tomato plant can be for the caterpillars. This was her workaround so that she didn't have to kill the green hornworms. All she had to do is put them on the other plant, and it was worth it to her to have a whole separate plant for them so that she didn't have to kill them. She also uses her garden as a way to teach the boys. And so she wanted this object lesson in her behavior shown to the boys so that they might adopt it in life. She also planted several plants around the tomatoes which are known repellents of pests, including the green hornworm. She planted marigolds, basil, and borage, and all 3 of them are known repellents of pests in gardens. The advantage of planting the basil is that later in the season, she can make pesto from the basil. So she gets a double benefit. Cathy is also aware that there is a predatory wasp that attacks the green hornworms. The wasp injects eggs under the skin of the caterpillar, and the eggs, when they hatch, produce larvae which feed on the inside of the caterpillar. When the wasps emerge from the caterpillar, it kills the caterpillar. So there is a natural predator-prey relationship between the sphinx moth life cycle and the wasp life cycle, and this is a natural relationship. So today she is in the garden. The boys are helping her plant the 2 new zucchini plants. They prepared the hole, positioned the plant at the right depth, filled in around it, and added some water. So that task was done quickly. She showed them the progress that the carrots had made, and they were thrilled to see the tiny little carrots growing under the soil. She pulled back the soil to expose the developing carrots so that they could see them. Great. She explained to the boys that these other plants, the marigold, the borage, and the basil, were natural repellents of pests, and that she had placed those plants near the tomatoes to provide some level of protection. She doesn't want to kill the green hornworms, but at the same time, she doesn't want the green hornworms to eat all her tomato plants. While they were in the garden, they looked for caterpillars. Each of the boys found several of them. So Cathy, with a glove on her hand, plucked the caterpillar off of the plant and put it on that fourth plant, which she had planted to allow the caterpillars to have a food source so that she didn't have to kill them. She explained this to the boys, and they seemed to understand. Each of the boys were able to pick up a caterpillar and move it to that fourth plant. Between the three of them, they probably repositioned 7 or 8 caterpillars. They knew how to find these camouflage caterpillars because they looked for foliage that had been eaten and then looked near to that foliage to find the green hornworms. At the end of their efforts, they could find no additional caterpillars eating their tomato plants, so they were satisfied. 2 of the caterpillars that they encountered had small white growths on the top of the caterpillar. This was a sign that these had been attacked by the parasitic wasp and that these were infested with wasp larvae. She explained this to the boys, explaining that nature has natural predator-prey relationships that have existed for millions of years, and there's nothing that can be done about that, nor is there anything that should be done about this. This is nature at work. The boys appeared to understand and nodded, approving that Mother Nature's in charge on this one. When they finished tending the tomatoes, they turned their attention to the 3 zucchini plants in the back of the garden. They lifted up the foliage, the leaves, and the vines to look underneath and see the blossoms that are on the plants, as well as the small zucchini fruit that are developing. At this point in the growth of the garden, the zucchinis are very small, too small to eat. They could see from their inspection that the zucchini were developing well and that they would have a very large crop. While they were in the back of the garden looking in the foliage, Cathy caught sight of a black snake underneath the vines, and she was able to point it out to the boys before it slithered away. She explained that the black snake is a normal, reasonable inhabitant. A black snake would be there looking for small bits of food, such as insects or perhaps a small lizard. And she also explained that most snakes in their area are not poisonous. She said, we don't want to try to catch that snake or handle it. It's a wild animal and we should give it some space. But at the same time, we should not have a lot of fear about that. Looking at that black snake, it's clearly not poisonous. It represents no risk to us. The boys understood that easily. Cathy reflected that she has a lot of respect for her parents and the way she was brought up, but there are many things that she looks at very differently now that she's an adult. Cathy does not kill spiders, ever, because spiders have a job to do and she wants them to just do their job. So she does not fear or kill spiders. She also doesn't kill snakes. There's no point in it. They have a job to do and she just wants them to do their job. And of course, the last thing we've already talked about, she doesn't like to use poisons in her garden. She doesn't use insecticides around the house. She'd rather keep her house clean and not use poisons at all. Soon the snake slithered away. The boys marveled at how it moved with no arms and no legs. It moved very efficiently through the undergrowth. At this point, Cathy was done with the chores in the garden, so she gathered up her few tools that she had used. She asked the boys if they had any questions, and they did not. So she took her tools back toward the house to put them away. The boys adjourned to the yard to play with Oscar. Now, what Cathy doesn't know is that during the harvesting period in this new garden, she will pick a lot of zucchini, but she's going to miss a few, 3 to be precise, in the very back of her garden, and she will not pick them. What will happen to those zucchinis is they will continue to grow. And so they will not remain the typical size of a zucchini, which is intended to be eaten. No, these 3 zucchinis get bigger and bigger and bigger, and soon they are basically 2 feet long. They look a lot more like baseball bats than zucchinis. They're also about as hard as a baseball bat. So that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I invite comments below, and of course, like and subscribe. That helps us build the channel. I hope you join us in future videos. See you soon.